Hi, welcome back to my channel. This is the video for the worst books of 2019. I have tried to film this video so many times and I just never can. Either because my kittens keep knocking over my phone and throwing me off my groove. If you hear rustling around, that's my kittens climbing my Christmas tree that's over here. Yep, see the kitten in there? Yeah, there he is. Hi, baby. They're mischievous. He just spilt water all over a brand new sketchbook. So I'm kind of mad at him right now, mad at Gigi. Anyway, and also then one time my phone ran out of storage and I had to, delete stuff and so that sucked. And that was after I filmed the whole thing. So obviously it's not fun to talk about your least favorite books over and over and over again. So I took a break and then I was really busy this month. So all of these videos, these end of the year videos are late and they're coming out in January. Happy 2020! Anyway. So I'm going to be doing this, there's 8 books on this list. Luckily I didn't have too many books that I really hated this year. They're going to be going from my least worst to my most worst book. And starting at number 8 is Deerskin by Robin McKinley. I'll put the picture up here. A lot of these I don't own anymore because I either unhauled them, they were library books, or they were audiobooks. Deerskin by Robin McKinley I was really disappointed in because I like Robin McKinley as an author and I've liked other works by her quite a bit. And it was well written, so that part was good, but I was just really disappointed by it overall. It is about a girl who is the princess and the daughter of the most beautiful woman in the world, and that her mother dies. And she tells her father before she dies that he can't marry anyone who is less beautiful than her because it would be unfair to that person. And so who is he supposed to marry if she's the most beautiful woman in the world? And it becomes increasingly clear as the daughter grows up that she is as beautiful as her mother was. And so unfortunately her father rapes her, forcing her to run away into the forest in the middle of the night and in the middle of winter with her dog Ash. And she sort of goes through this recovery, this trauma recovery. I think Robin McKinley did a really good job of handling that trauma and depicting it in the way that you don't feel like you have ownership over your own body, or that your own body is almost betrayed you and has all these horrible memories associated with it. And just how that healing process takes a long time and sometimes takes a confusing path from someone who might be looking from the outside in. So anyway, so she goes to this other kingdom and where she meets a prince and she helps him rescue his dying puppies who are the same breed as her dog Ash. And they fall in love and all this stuff. And the reason I didn't like this book is mostly just nothing happens. Other than that first part, really it's super slow and nothing happens, and there's a little bit of magic, but not enough to be interesting. The best part is the dogs, but they're just dogs. They're cute, but I don't know. It wasn't enough for me. And so I gave it 3 stars because I feel like the depiction of trauma was important and could help people. But in terms of my personal enjoyment of it, it was more of a 2 stars. I was really anxious for it to be over with, which is not how you should feel about a book at all. Moving on to number 7 is My Sister the Serial Killer by, give me a minute, Oyinkan Braithwaite, I think is how you say her name. Anyway, I read this book for a book club. I gave it 2 stars. It's super short, super easy to read. The writing was fine. It's about 2 women in Nigeria, 2 sisters. The younger sister keeps murdering her boyfriends, and her older sister, who is a nurse, keeps having to clean up after her. And supposedly her sister is doing it out of self-defense, but the older sister is starting to wonder maybe her sister is just a straight up serial killer. So the title is pretty much exactly what it's about. And things come to a head when her sister starts dating one of the doctors at the hospital where the main character works, and the main character has a crush on that doctor, and so she's worried that her sister is going to murder him. So she has to decide sort of where her loyalties are going to lie. And it's a pretty uneventful book also. hold on. Gigi. Sorry. Sorry about that. Anyway, it's a pretty uneventful book, and I really just didn't understand the point of it, I guess, like why I didn't like the moral I felt like it was presenting, which was almost like men don't, like it's impossible to find a good man. You should choose family no matter what, even if they control you and are murdering people. So it really didn't connect with me. I didn't understand the conclusion of it. I felt like, you know, her sister was really controlling of her, and kind of, she didn't, like, her sister didn't care that the main character had to go through the guilt of these dead people, and that she was the one who had to keep dealing with it, and her sister just got to keep going on and having this, like, happy-go-lucky life. And yet she still chooses her in the end. Spoilers. Yeah, I don't know. It just didn't click with me. So that was unfortunate. Number 6 is The Perfect Girlfriend by Karen Hamilton. Sorry, Mom. This book is one of the only thrillers that I've ever read, and it was about a girl who gets dumped by her boyfriend. I think her name is Juliet. Anyway, she gets dumped by her boyfriend, and she is determined to get him back no matter what. So she starts to stalk him. She breaks into his house. She will sniff his clothes, like that kind of stuff. He's a pilot, so she becomes a flight attendant to get back in his life. There are parts of this book that were pretty creepy. The way that she acts is very creepy. The issues I had with it is that it takes a really long time for anything significant to happen. Like, most of the book is just her going through her life of being a flight attendant and breaking into his house and other people's houses, and there's not a lot of conflict there. And then when the sort of climax happens, I just didn't really feel like it went far enough. I don't think it was creepy enough. And then worst of all, it had one of those really open-ended endings, and it was just really not satisfying at all. I don't necessarily hate open-ended endings all the time, but I find that they're quite difficult to do, and this one did not pull it off well. So that's why it's on my least favorite list. Number 5 is Broken Monsters by Lauren Bukes. I read this also for the same book club, and it was for a Halloween kind of thing. It is about a creepy serial killer who is murdering people and then dissecting their bodies and putting them together with animal parts to create these weird hybrid looking creatures. They're not alive, they're dead, but they just like a boy attached to a deer body kind of thing. That's not spoilers, it's in the first page. And you know who the serial killer is right away, but it's still pretty creepy. Just, who's he going to kill next? What is he going to do? He's really obviously insane. And it's multiple perspectives. It follows the serial killer. It follows the detective who's trying to catch him. It follows the detective's daughter, who is a teenager. And it follows this reporter guy who's trying to break into his big story to really make it as a reporter. And it was fine for the most part, although I really hated the perspective of the reporter, because I just thought he was a jerk and he really didn't treat his girlfriend very well, and he just thought he was really all that, and he was just annoying. Anyway, but where it lost me is the ending conclusion really takes a supernatural turn, and I just didn't like that. I felt like it was kind of a cop-out. And it didn't feel earned, I guess, the supernatural elements of it. So I was really disappointed by that, and it just wasn't very good. So I need better thrillers, guys. Recommend thrillers to me. Number 4 is a book that I actually still have, and I haven't unhauled it yet, and that is Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James. I really wanted to like this book, partially because I love the cover. It's very interesting looking and colorful. And also the author is a black gay man, and so I just felt, as the, person that I am, that I should love that book, and I didn't. I actually did not finish it. A lot of these books I did not finish, although all the previous ones I did finish. If you have a problem with that, too bad. I did get through a lot of this book. It's basically about this boy who goes missing and a cast of characters is hired to go find him. The main character is a guy named Tracker, and he basically has a really strong nose, and he can track people just by their scent. Another person is one of his friends, who is just called Leopard, and he's a shape-shifting leopard man. And there's a witch and some other people, and it takes a while to even get to the point where they've been hired to look for this boy. Before that, it's sort of backstory and some other weird stuff that happens. The writing of this book is very, very dense. It's very hard to understand. Like, I had to reread a lot of parts to just really understand why the characters were doing what they're doing. The dialogue is really hard to follow. Like, you don't really understand why they're saying those things, like what they're responding to exactly. So that made the reading of it quite slow. In addition to that, it is pretty slow and boring, like event-wise. Even though it seems like it should be interesting because the stuff that happens in it is really dramatic and intense, but the way that it's written makes it feel really slow. And but more than that, it just was so violent. It's so unnecessarily violent. I couldn't finish it. It just is gross, and I'm not into like slasher stuff. Like, this isn't slasher, that's not what I call it, but the violence is about that level, and just there's so much rape and mutilation and abuse of women. There's lots of misogyny in it. There's lots of homophobia in it too. So I wonder if just some of this was like the author working through some of his traumas. And just none of it affected the plot really. And I had no idea why any of this was happening. And it was really hard to get a sense of where anything was and like the sense of place, despite the fact that, he's a tracker. He's supposed to be really in tune to things. But even like scent descriptions were really one note. Like, he just would describe like people's ass smell and like semen and blood and all this gross stuff that, like, I don't want to think about smelling that. Like, once is one thing, but that's literally all he ever smelled, which sounds like a terrible existence. So anyway, there was just one point where there was a really violent thing that happened, and I kept having to stop to like recover from reading something like that. So I finally just gave up and was like, I need to not finish this book. I just need to admit it's not for me. I did give it 3 stars because I think it would be for someone, maybe. Like, I feel like I didn't get it, maybe. I don't know. But in terms of my enjoyment of it, it was pretty low. So that's unfortunate. Number 3 on this list is We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faisal. I read this book for a different book club, and I did finish this one, and it is a YA fantasy about a girl who dresses up like a boy because girls are not allowed to do anything, basically, in her society. And she goes into this magical forest that nobody else can go into without surviving, but for some reason she can. So she hunts in that forest, and she provides food for her village. And if she were ever to be discovered, it would she'd have to stop, and everybody would starve. So and one day she is invited to find out why magic has disappeared from the world, because there used to be magic in this world, and she's supposed to go into the heart of the forest where there's this island where supposedly magic has disappeared to, and hopefully save everybody, because the forest is expanding and slowly taking over the world. At the same time, there is a prince from another kingdom, or caliphate, I think they're called, because it's a Arabic-inspired fantasy. And he is an assassin under the firm control of his father, the Sultan. And he is also assigned to go find this relic that's supposed to restore magic. And he's also supposed to kill the hunter, who is actually the huntress. And obviously they collide on the island, and a couple other characters join it, and they fall in love. This book, it honestly needed 200 more pages, and I feel like it should have been adult. Like, it needed the time the bones were there, but it needed the time that adult fantasy takes to really develop it and build the world and develop the relationships, that there just isn't enough time or stylistically available often in YA. It obviously had this really deep lore that she would hint at, that the author would hint at, but she just didn't take any time to properly explain anything. And so everything felt very surface level, especially the relationships. I just didn't buy the connection that this group had supposedly to each other. It's supposed to feel like a team, like a gang, and it didn't feel like that. It felt like basically there was like one scene between the main female character and every other character where like they have one touching scene and now they're best friends, and I just really didn't buy it. And it was really hard to get through. It was really hard to follow what was happening and why it was happening. And so I was really bummed, because this is another book I really, really wanted to enjoy. And also kind of because of it being a Muslim, Arabic inspired story written by a Muslim woman, that breaks a lot of stereotypes that surround that kind of demographic. So I really wanted to like it, but unfortunately I didn't like it enough. I'm not interested in reading the next one. I do hope that this author gives it a shot again and maybe writes an adult fantasy, because I just think she'd be better at that if she had more time to explore stuff. All right, moving on. Number 2 is a book called Chemistry by Weike Wang. This I listened to on audio, and I almost finished it. It's quite short. And then I realized that I wasn't enjoying myself at all, so I stopped with like 2 hours left in the audiobook. So, Chemistry is about a girl in a grad program for chemistry, and she's going through some relation troubles with her boyfriend who wants to get married, and she doesn't want to because she's got all these like anxiety issues, and she has a fear of commitment, and he gets fed up with it and he splits up with her. And again, kind of, you might be seeing a theme here, but it was just really boring and like nothing was really happening. And it was just like her internal monologue about her relationship and how hard her grad program is. And because she's a chemistry major and like maybe a little bit not that social, like the way that she told her story was very clinically even and just very balanced, but that made it kind of boring to read. And then I also felt like she was not a good partner in her relationship, and I do not blame that dude for dumping her, because she clearly had no concern for his feelings at all. And I understand that there should be compromise and he should, be aware of what she needs, but she just wasn't willing at all to meet him halfway. And I don't know if she came to terms with that by the end. I was too bored to find out. All right, and number 1 on this list for the worst book that I read in 2019, I also have right here, and that is The Magicians by Lev Grossman? Yeah, Lev Grossman. I hated this book. It was terrible. I did not finish it. Gave it 2 stars and the only reason I didn't give it 1 star is because the writing was okay. All of these little blue tabs are parts where the main character is disgusting, just a horrible human being. He is a spoiled little privileged white boy who is in the middle of choosing his university that he wants to go to, and he gets to go to Harvard or Princeton because he's just that smart, and it makes sure he lets you how smart he is. He's so smart, you guys. And his parents love him, but he's so sick of his life, his poor, boring life where his parents are nice to him and he gets to go to Harvard. It's not Narnia, guys, so you should feel bad for him. I mean, there's lines in here where he says that he thinks that he thought that he had that he had the worst life possible, which is just, that's ridiculous. I mean, really. And then he meets someone whose like family member died, and he's like, oh, maybe I don't have the worst life possible. Yeah, no crap. Anyway, he's also extremely misogynistic. He basically, every woman that he sees, he immediately evaluates them based on how sexy they are, and then if they aren't sexy, he's very critical of their looks. He thinks they're disgusting, and if they are sexy, he's pissed off at them because they won't sleep with him, even though he didn't even like try to get with them. He just assumes they won't, and he hates them for being too out of his league. So he basically sounds like he's one step away from writing a manifesto and going on a shooting spree on his freaking campus. Like, I hated this guy. And let me see if I can find a section just as an example. Here's an example from the very beginning. Quentin wished she weren't so attractive. Unpretty women were so much easier to deal with in some ways. You didn't have to face the pain of their probable unattainability. But she was not unpretty. She was pale and thin and unreasonably lovely, with a broad, ridiculously sexy mouth. I mean, that writing is also just super annoying. And then, yeah, he gets mad. And then she tries to have authority over him because she's like, in this scene, she's like an investigator. And then he's all like mad at her for having authority over him as a woman. He even gets mad at the gay character for not wanting to give him a blowjob. Like, this guy is so entitled and so annoying. And maybe over the series that improves, but I just hated him so much. I did not care to find out. And he's also really pretentious, and he's got a bunch of pretentious friends, and I just really hated it. So that was the worst book that I DNF'd in 2019. I hope I can talk about my favorite books of the year next, so I can talk about something that doesn't make me so angry. Anyway, I hope you're going to have a wonderful, fantastic New Year's and a wonderful 2020.